Welcome back. Reporter panel time. You know how that delights me. Daniella Diaz covers politics in Congress for NOTUS, soon to be renamed The Star. Looking forward to that. Nicholas Wu, congressional reporter for Semafor. Nicholas, let me start with you. So, I mentioned this going to break. Universal basic income. Andrew Yang has been on this program talking about it. It's an idea that many progressives have embraced. And now Elon Musk and some other in the tech community are kind of talking about it, too, as a hedge against layoffs as related to artificial intelligence. How is that being received on the big Capitol, on top of the Hill?
Well, I talked to several lawmakers who spearhead their own universal basic income bills. The idea is that the government in some way would provide some sort of guaranteed income for folks.
Cash instead of welfare, essentially. Cash direct payments.
Exactly. You know, $1,000 a month, $2,000 a month, something like that for adults and children. But progressives I talked to were actually really skeptical of these tech billionaires coming out in favor of it. Because the thinking there was, you have to pay for this somehow with taxes. AOC told me, maybe you would have to pay for this with the tax on AI. And, that's probably not something these folks would be down for.
And Daniella, you have some interesting reporting about the House Ethics Committee giving at least rhetorical support to evaluating and possibly changing the way investigations are conducted, the speed thereof, and especially how accusations relating to sexual misconduct on the Hill itself with staffers might be carried out.
Major, I think if anyone saw what happened with Tony Gonzalez and Eric Swalwell, they would all agree that that situation with the two lawmakers being investigated for at least Tony Gonzalez for months and leading to no conclusion and then leading to him having to resign when the pressure was there from leadership, it shouldn't be handled that way. There should be a process. It should be quick. They should be able to acknowledge that there was sexual misconduct with a staffer. So when I had multiple conversations with members on both sides on Capitol Hill, they were very clear that they thought that this situation needs to be reformed. They believe that it should be investigated should there be an accusation quickly. There should be more transparency. And they acknowledge that this is going to have to be potentially more staff on the ethics committee, revamp of how things are handled. But
because just to let my audience in on this, there is a sense at times the Ethics Committee has been designed to slow walk things.
Yes, definitely.
To not be a protection racket necessarily for members of Congress, but to go so slow as to see if the member of Congress can work it out on their own with their own constituents and not have to face a true reckoning from ethics.
And the bigger thing is, if they resign, that investigation ends.
Right.
There is no due process when it comes to potential sexual misconduct or any sort of misconduct on Capitol Hill if a staffer resigns. So there's a lot of talk about how to handle that going forward.
And Nicholas, one of your colleagues wrote about the MAGA podcast universe, the war with Iran, and some separations that are now very easily detectable.
So my colleague took a look at all of these podcasts that President Trump had gone on during the election to check in and see how these the broverse of these guys felt about the war in Iran, and most of them were actually opposed to it, which in some ways shows a changing of the tides against the president among all these folks who had not really been that political before, but then all of a sudden had supported the president heading into the election.
And it's not just Tucker Carlson; it's others of those who, maybe in various ways, not super hostile, but skeptical or just outright opposed because they don't think it's America first.
That's right. These folks saw the war in Iran as somewhat of a betrayal of the president's promises during the campaign to get out of wars and
not
to
start them in the first place.
Exactly.
And Danielle, you have some interesting reporting on immigration and some concerns from Senate Democrats about blanket holding off or stalling through the administration of asylum claims, if I have that right.
You have that right. The Democrats on the Senate Judiciary Committee, Major, sent a letter to the Government Accountability Office asking for the acting inspector to investigate why the Trump administration is continuing to hold processing legal applicants who are trying to stay in this country legally. So far, that's been on hold. There's a lot of questions that they want answered about how much this is costing, what this means for legal immigration on
What's
the economy.
What's happened to the fees they've paid?
The fees they've paid. This is affecting the economy, too. They want those answers as well. So we'll see if there's any response. I actually did ask DHS for an answer, whether they had any feedback on what these Democrats are asking for, and I did not get a response.
But if there is a changeover after the midterms, questions like these that maybe don't get answers now, Democrats, if they control the House or possibly even the Senate, would be in position to put more clout behind trying to get some of those answers. Daniella Diaz, Nicholas Wu, thank you very much. Appreciate you coming in. Have a great weekend.